This man has been called the most valuable KGB spy in history. The damage he caused the United States is so great that experts on Soviet intelligence say if war had broken out in the 1970s, the Kremlin would have won. His name, John Anthony Walker. So manipulative, so cunning, he recruited his brother, his best friend, even his son. This is the story of John Walker and his family of spies. Washington, D.C., Christmas 1967. Carolers sing of goodwill toward men, and America slides deeper into the Vietnam War. Less than half a mile from the White House, a balding, bespectacled man walks along 16th Street. Appearing to be just another Christmas shopper, he crosses L Street, approaches an impressive, foreboding turn-of-the-century mansion, and passes through a gate few Americans enter. The embassy of the Soviet Union. "I want to see someone in security," he tells the guard at the door. "I am an American naval officer." Name, John Anthony Walker, Jr. Age, 30. Watch officer, U.S. Atlantic Fleet Operations Headquarters, Norfolk, Virginia. A 12-year Navy veteran. Rank, Chief Warrant Officer. Cited for intense loyalty, his pride in the Navy. His job as a watch officer in the message room gives him access to every top-secret communique involving the Atlantic submarine fleet. John Walker hands the Soviets tantalizing samples of the U.S. Navy's top-secret codes, the cryptographic key lists which give the daily settings for naval code machines, unlocking some of America's top wartime secrets. Money is Walker's motive, not ideology. A miserable marriage, a growing family, and a Navy salary make him desperate for cash.
Is it any different than an insider trader that betrays his corporation, or a bank teller who robs the bank they work for?
The Soviets approach it the same way, as a business deal. To nail down details, they set up a meeting in 2 weeks at this shopping center in Alexandria, Virginia, following one of the intricate scripts the KGB loves so well. The plot calls for John Walker to arrive at the Zayre department store at 2 p.m. Under his right arm, he must carry a folded Time magazine. Then the instructions say a man will approach and call you dear friend. They stroll through adjoining streets, talking details. A salary of $4,000 a month. He must not tell anyone, not even his wife, Barbara. And he must not be flashy with his spending. The KGB gives him a miniature camera called a Minox to photograph secret documents, and a small KGB invention specifically designed to mate with the internal wiring of the U.S. Navy's KL-47 coding machine and read its wiring diagram. This is called the rotor reader. As in any business deal, the Soviets want to try out the merchandise. Are Walker's key lists real? To find out, they need the actual code machines. The very next month, an opportunity to get one is presented, or perhaps created, thousands of miles away. January 23rd, 1968. A few weeks after Walker's call at the embassy. Location, the U.S. Navy communication ship Pueblo, off the coast of North Korea. Her cover, oceanographic research. In reality, the Pueblo is a spy ship, collecting electronic intelligence. Among the Pueblo's sophisticated gear, the widely used KW-7, just what the Russians want. The Soviets' friends in North Korea hijack the ship and capture her crew before the crypto machines can be destroyed. The Soviets now contest the key lists Walker has handed over. According to sources in the FBI, immediately after the Pueblo hijacking, Walker begins receiving large cash payments. Walker has been a spy for less than 2 months, but he's already well on his way to becoming, as he puts it, the best damn spy there ever was. Walker promises the KGB not to be flashy, but he moves with his wife Barbara and their 4 children into Norfolk's Algonquin house. It's far more expensive than they could afford on a meager $725 per month Navy salary. Barbara becomes suspicious. She jimmies open a locked desk in John's office and finds $2,000, photographs, and a map with the words, "Please destroy," on top. Now Barbara knows that John is a traitor. She confronts him.
He hit me a couple of times. I had 2 very large black eyes the next morning.
She was the only threat, the only really severe, substantial threat to that organization for almost 20 years. And in fact, some people have suggested to me, why didn't I eliminate her?
It's like being in a bad dream. You think you're going to wake up.
These are the actual photographic directions for one of Walker's drops supplied by his KGB handlers. Walker stuffs the secrets into a trash bag, then leaves a 7-Up can to signal the KGB that the drop is ready. Farther along, his money is waiting.
Shortly after I found out what John was doing, I was going to turn him in. And I couldn't. The more I thought about it, the more I couldn't.
Walker feels free to continue his espionage. With his help, the KGB will decipher more than 1 million secret messages over the next 17 years. (1971). John Walker volunteers for duty in Vietnam to improve his access to top-secret materials. He becomes a classified material system custodian aboard the USS Niagara Falls, a combat supply ship. Walker now has unlimited access to all key lists and the Navy's newest cryptographic machines. He is in charge of all communication security. He is also a courier, carrying secret messages to and from Saigon Command. American officers are not aware that the information will end up on the desks of the KGB and North Vietnam. Experts believe Walker's spying cost American lives by compromising sea and air missions in Vietnam, including the timing of B-52 bombing raids, harbor mining, and battle plans. After Walker has served the KGB 4 years, he wins a U.S. Navy commendation that states, "Chief Warrant Officer Walker is intensely loyal, taking great pride in himself and the naval service, fiercely supporting its principles and traditions. He possesses a fine sense of honor and integrity." Summer 1974. The Navy transfers Walker back to Atlantic Fleet Headquarters in Norfolk, Virginia. He's cut off from top-secret codes, key lists, and manuals. Desperate, he turns to his best friend, also in the Navy. Name, Jerry Alfred Whitworth. Age, 35. Rank, radio man, with access to the latest secret naval satellite communications. Assignment, U.S. Naval Communications Station, Diego Garcia, in the Indian Ocean.
I approached my best friend, trusted. And that's who you approach, you know, when you're going to suggest something criminal.
Walker's recruitment of his friend is masterful. He exploits Whitworth's weakness for money, and he deceives Whitworth by telling him that he will be spying not for the Soviets, but for Israel. Through John Walker, the KGB pays Whitworth $4,000 per month for a mounting flood of secrets gleaned from one sensitive assignment after another. For 10 years, Whitworth is such an effective spy that Walker makes plans to retire from the Navy in 1976 and just supervise. He sees himself as the godfather of spies. The same year Walker retires, his wife shakes up his tidy world. Barbara demands a divorce. Walker is fiercely against it. He's afraid she's a loose cannon, but she gets her divorce anyway. Free of Barbara and in cities, Walker develops a perfect cover for his career as a Soviet spy. More spying as a private investigator. Ironically, he calls his company Counter Spy. Showing off his new toys, he poses happily for a television program with his new airplane, his houseboat, his girlfriend, and his spy van, complete with hidden camera. Forever planning for the future, the conniving Walker even trains son Michael in the art of undercover.
I'm not bragging, but I was good, because my dad taught me a lot. And when your father is a spy, you're going to learn the real stuff and how to take those photographs, how to deal with people on a one-on-one basis, how to lie, how to use pretext conversations.
1978, Vienna. For security reasons, the KGB decides that all personal contacts with John Walker must now be in Europe. Moscow Central comes up with an elaborate plan for clandestine meetings called the Vienna Procedure. These are the actual KGB instructions. At 18:15, come to the Komet Kushin store. At 18:55, stop at the Vatsala men's apparel store. Browse around its window displays from 1855 to 1858. In Vienna, Walker gives the KGB the very latest Whitworth material, including schematics of the top-secret KW-37 code machine, enabling the Soviets to construct their own working models. In 1983, Whitworth, ashore at his cramped trailer-like house, tells Walker that he is burned out, having marital problems. He's retiring from the Navy. Not even talk of $1 million will change his mind. Frenzied and furious, Walker is desperate for a replacement spy. Who will it be? Retired from the Navy, but fancying himself the godfather of spies, John Walker needs new recruits, preferably within his own family. He turns to his trusting older brother, who he knows is in debt. Name, Arthur James Walker, age 49, retired Navy lieutenant commander who served on nuclear submarines.
I don't think he got me involved to get me in trouble. I think he felt this was a way to both help himself, perhaps, and help me at the same time.
As a staff engineer for a U.S. defense contractor, Arthur provides 3 classified documents of limited value. The KGB pressures John Walker for more sensitive material. He then reaches out to his own admiring son, Michael.
I liked the way he dressed. I liked his cars. I liked his boats, his house, his women. Gracefully smooth. He's smooth. I was groomed. It took years.
The cynical father encourages his pliable son to join the Navy and get a sensitive job. One evening in 1983, Walker draws Michael deeper into his world of treason. He asks him to spy and offers Michael as much as $5,000 a month for classified documents. Michael says, "That's real cool. Cut me in."
I was pleasing my father, and I was getting some money. The greed involved. Everybody has a price, and mine just happened to be at the cost, unfortunately, of our country.
It is 1984. Michael is assigned to the aircraft carrier Nimitz radio room. He is granted an interim secret clearance by the Navy without a National Security Agency check. He steals more than 1,300 messages and battle plan documents, hiding them at the head of his bunk until he can pass them on to his father. November 23, 1984. Barbara Walker tips off the FBI. Divorced 10 years, driven to alcohol, embittered, impoverished, isolated from her loved ones. She finally caves in.
This just couldn't go on. Couldn't go on.
The FBI decides to tap John Walker's phone. They give the case a code name, Windflyer. The FBI suspects that Walker has scheduled a KGB drop on May 19, 1985 in suburban Washington. He will deliver the latest shipment from his son Michael. Walker heads north for the drop site with a trash bag full of documents. This time, he is under heavy surveillance by the FBI. From Norfolk, Virginia to Richmond, across the Potomac River to Washington, D.C., then into Maryland, the net tightens. Walker's KGB handler, Alexei Tkachenko, is ready for the pickup. Walker makes his drop by a utility pole near a tree with twisted limbs. Then he drives a short distance and leaves a 7-Up can as a signal. The FBI converges on the scene. Inside the trash bag, they find top-secret documents from the Nimitz, mixed with rubbish. When Tkachenko arrives, the all-important 7-Up can is missing. Inadvertently, the FBI has removed it. This tips off Tkachenko that the spy mission has been compromised. 3 days later, he escapes to Moscow. The FBI has lost its chance to capture the KGB agent. When Walker drives back to collect his cash, it isn't in place. Walker now knows something is wrong. Still trying to puzzle it out, he checks into room 765 at the Rockville, Maryland Ramada Inn to get some sleep. At 3:30 a.m., the phone rings. Someone has crashed into his van. Will he please come down to the front desk? Walker opens the door and steps into the hall, into the arms of the waiting FBI. The FBI arrests him immediately, and almost as quickly he implicates his brother, best friend, and even his son. By the end of the day, Arthur Walker and Jerry Whitworth are also under arrest. A special Navy flight delivers Michael Walker from the Nimitz to the FBI. At this point, John Walker's new betrayal begins. Walker cuts a deal with the government. Testimony against his brother Arthur and his friend, Jerry Whitworth, in return for light sentences for himself and for his son. Arthur Walker, 3 concurrent life terms plus 40 years, plus a $250,000 fine, no parole. Jerry Whitworth, 365 years, plus $410,000 fine, parole at age 107. John Walker, 2 concurrent life terms plus 100 years, eligible for parole in 1994 after 10 years. Michael Walker, 2 25-year terms and 3 10-year terms, eligible for parole after 8 years. Free in 16 years, guaranteed.
During my entire espionage career, I received a total of $1,000. You lose all around. I lost my wife, lost my dog, lost my car, my house, my dignity.
I know how much Michael loves his father, even now. And that's right. And I know how John could manipulate him. He's paid a high price for loving his father.
I love him very much. A certain bond between a son and a father. It shouldn't change just because of something like this.
How could a father do this to his son?
No comment.
The lives of a family and a friend are destroyed. How many lives their spying claimed may never be known. The Walker Ring provided a vast amount of information about U.S. naval intelligence and battle plans, about new weapons. The spies exposed America's communication secrets, the technology of silent running submarines, how the order of a missile launch would be received at sea, even information on Soviet cities targeted by U.S. submarine missiles. For these secrets and more, Walker is believed to have received some $1 million, the most ever paid to a spy. And now, Spies presents The Enemy Within, the story of the brilliant Cambridge graduates who become spies for Stalin, traitors to the West. They are schoolmates at Cambridge, the cream of Britain's elite. During World War II and the Cold War, they hold key positions in the Secret Service and the Foreign Office, and gain unrestricted access to America's State Department, CIA, and Atomic Energy Commission. They compromise American strategy during the Korean War, a betrayal that cost thousands of American lives. They are the Cambridge Spies, traitors to their class and country, enemies within. Washington, D.C., 1945. From this brick house at 2710 35th Place in northwest Washington, D.C., a British diplomat begins his daily 10-minute walk to work. He holds one of the most important Foreign Office posts outside of London, First Secretary of the British Embassy. Once inside, the tall, striking diplomat reviews all the urgent overnight cables, freshly decoded by an aide. The sensitive cables are filled with classified information about British-American strategies to contain Soviet aggression in the post-war world. Secret cables that must be protected at all cost from spies. Yet the diplomat himself is a spy, a Soviet mole who has penetrated the highest levels of the British Foreign Service. Name, Donald Duart McLean, age 32, cynical, atheistic, a heavy drinker and smoker. A reverse image of his father, Sir Donald McLean, a cabinet minister and pillar of the Victorian age. At 18, the young McLean enters Cambridge University, a cloistered haven where future members of the ruling class are educated. The 1930s are a grim time to be young. England is reeling from the Great Depression. Hunger and mass unemployment are everywhere. The capitalist system itself seems on the ropes. Fascism is on the rise. For many young intellectuals, communism is the answer to the economic crisis, and also the best defense against fascism. At Cambridge, Donald McLean becomes a communist. His motives are rooted in hatred of his father and his father's society. Here, the Soviets recruit one of the most infamous spy networks in the history of espionage. They will later be known as the Cambridge Five, Stalin's Englishmen. Donald McLean, Kim Philby, Guy Burgess, and two others not part of this story, Anthony Blunt and John Cairncross. Their assignment? Penetrate the highest levels of British government. Become moles, men with double lives. In appearance, trusted members of the establishment. In reality, spies who pass secrets to the Kremlin. London, 1941. The Cambridge Spies are in place in the British Secret Service and the Foreign Office. All through World War II, Stalin's Englishmen feed Moscow top-secret information the British and Americans would rather not share with their Soviet ally. They penetrate Britain's Bletchley Park, where secret German radio transmissions, the Ultra Intercepts, are decoded. Ultra is one of the most closely guarded secrets of World War II. Through Ultra, the British learn vital details of German military planning. So does Stalin. But the greatest feats of the Cambridge Spies are yet to come. After the war in 1945, the Red Army occupies Eastern Europe. It is a mighty force. Nearly 3 million Soviet troops are stationed in Europe. But across the ocean, American troops are coming home. The West is dismantling its war machine. The West relies on America's monopoly of the atomic bomb to deter Stalin. Stalin is determined to consolidate his hold on Eastern Europe and expand the Soviet sphere of influence. He urgently needs to know, how far can he go? When and where will the Western powers try to stop his aggression? Donald McLean, posted at the British Embassy in Washington, is assigned to find out. For Soviet spy McLean, Washington is the perfect place. Mingling with society, getting to know the diplomatic players and the politicians, helps ensure his cover, giving him access to information Stalin needs. And as a top representative of America's most important ally, McLean has passes that open doors throughout Washington. Passes to the War Department, where he gets his hands on top-secret long-range military plans. Passes to the Central Intelligence Agency, where he dates the secretaries and steals classified information. And passes to the Atomic Energy Commission, where he can go anywhere without the escort required even for members of Congress and the cabinet. Stalin's man in Washington has total access to the inner corridors of American power. Somewhere in the labyrinth is the information Stalin wants desperately. How many atomic bombs are there in the American nuclear arsenal? For the answer, Stalin counts on his man at the British Embassy in Washington, Soviet spy Donald McLean. Washington, 1947. Meeting in this building near the White House, a top-secret Anglo-American committee that controls the development of the atomic bomb. Among its members, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of War, and British diplomat Soviet spy Donald McLean. The Cold War military strategy of the West is based on its monopoly of atomic weapons. Yet, incredibly, officials in Washington don't know exactly how many bombs exist in America's arsenal. January 1948. The new chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission, David Lilienthal, travels to the government's secret laboratory in New Mexico to inspect America's nuclear arsenal. He is shocked at what he finds. America has no operational atomic bombs and no teams to build any. Even worse, the U.S. is about to run out of uranium. Lilienthal informs a handful of top government officials Among them, the British diplomat who has unrestricted access to America's atomic secrets, Donald McLean. McLean reports it all to Soviet intelligence. Stalin is elated. The Soviet leader steps up his campaign to drive the West out of Berlin, the free city surrounded by Soviet-controlled East Germany. June 24th, 1948. Confident the U.S. will not dare oppose him, Stalin blockades Berlin, halting all ground traffic. The Soviets are risking war. Four days later, President Truman dispatches 60 B-29s, so-called atom bombers, to U.S. bases in Europe. He is determined that the U.S. will stay in Berlin. But Stalin knows from McLean that Truman is bluffing. There are no atomic bombs on board. Stalin isolates and cuts off the city. Berlin is crippled. The West moves to break the blockade. The Berlin airlift begins. Military cargo planes carrying tons of food and supplies fly into Berlin's Tempelhof Airport. The airlift continues 24 hours a day for almost 15 months. Ultimately, the Berlin blockade is broken by America's will, not by the threat of nuclear weapons. October 1948. The British Foreign Office promotes Donald McLean to Cairo as head of Chancery. He is on a path to the top. The Foreign Office completely trusts him. But in Egypt, McLean begins to fall apart. The pressures of his double life drive him to drink and despondency. He suffers a nervous breakdown, and 1 year later is recalled to London for psychiatric treatment. Washington, October 9th, 1949. Another of the Cambridge spies arrives on the scene. Name, Harold Kim Philby, age 37, born India, 1912. Young Philby develops a lifelong stammer and uses it to control conversation. Has a love for conspiracy and believes knowing secrets raises him above other men. Recruited by Soviet intelligence at Cambridge, joins MI6, the British Secret Service, in 1940. In Washington, Philby is the Secret Intelligence Service liaison with the CIA and FBI. It is a triumphant moment in his career, a penetration agent at the heart of Western intelligence. He lives in this house where he entertains top CIA and FBI officers at lavish dinner parties, quenching his thirst for martinis with guests like FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. They do not suspect that he has a secret photo lab in the basement. Kim Philby's cunning and wit will soon be put to the test. The FBI has begun to decode secret Soviet intelligence messages intercepted during World War II. The decrypts reveal that a Soviet mole worked in the British embassy. His code name, Homer. Part of Philby's new job is to help the FBI track down Homer. But Philby already knows who Homer is, his Cambridge chum, Donald McLean. The FBI provides Philby an office in the Justice Department. He connives to undermine and frustrate the hunt for the Soviet mole. Moscow orders Philby to protect the valuable McLean as long as he possibly can. June 1950. North Korean forces equipped with Soviet-made weapons invade South Korea. President Truman sends American troops under United Nations command to defend South Korea. As the great battle for Korea begins, Stalin's Englishmen betray new secrets that will directly cost thousands of American lives. September 1950. The outbreak of the Korean War creates an emergency atmosphere in the nation's capital. To work with the U.S. State Department, the British Foreign Office sends an expert on Asian communism to Washington. Name: Guy Francis de Moncey Burgess. Age: 39. Brilliant, but irresponsible. Burgess shocks bourgeois convention with his open homosexuality and heavy drinking. Burgess has now added the abuse of drugs to his repertoire. His contempt for America has intensified. His appearance has deteriorated. He moves into the makeshift basement apartment in Kim Philby's home on Nebraska Avenue. Philby is worried about Burgess's erratic behavior. Appointed second secretary at the British Embassy, he sits in his office drinking whiskey from a flask and chain-smoking cigarettes. Yet he remains in the loop, receiving classified Korean War information, which he passes on to his Soviet contact. The FBI investigation of Homer moves forward. The number of suspects has fallen from 1,500 to 35, including Donald McLean. Despite this, the British Foreign Office rehabilitates McLean and appoints him head of the American desk in London. In his new job, McLean has access to information so sensitive, even the U.S. State Department is unaware of it. In October, UN troops under General Douglas MacArthur recapture all of South Korea seized by the communists and drive into North Korea toward the Chinese border. From the Cambridge spies, the Kremlin learns every UN move in advance, every plan, every intent. There will be no hot pursuit from North Korea into China, no strikes against dams or power plants on the Yalu River, and all targets in Manchuria and China are off limits. Stalin passes the information to Mao Zedong, leader of Communist China. Sunday, November 26th. Chinese troops, 300,000 strong, accompanied by drums, bugles, and flutes, attack along a 300-mile front. UN forces are vastly outnumbered. Casualties run high. Despite the rout of UN troops, Stalin and Mao are informed by McLean that the U.S. will not use atomic weapons in Korea. At FBI headquarters in Washington, the search for Homer, the Soviet mole who worked in the British Embassy, is intensifying. Kim Philby is still trying to sidetrack the investigation. The FBI's list of suspects has been reduced to 2 names. One of them is Donald McLean. At Philby's urging, Moscow decides to pull the plug on McLean. Guy Burgess rushes to London to help McLean escape to the Soviet Union. Friday, May 25, 1951, the Foreign Secretary authorizes British intelligence to hold McLean for questioning as a possible Soviet agent. But MI5 decides to wait until Monday, after the weekend. Late Friday, Burgess drives to McLean's home south of London. He hustles McLean out of the house on the pretext of an urgent business appointment. The 2 spies escape to Moscow. The American FBI and CIA are furious with the British for allowing McLean to escape. They suspect that Philby is the 3rd man who tipped off McLean. Within days, Philby is recalled from Washington to London and forced to resign. Philby claims he is an innocent victim of McCarthyism.
Well, if there was a 3rd man, were you in fact the 3rd man?
No, I was not.
You think there was one?
No comment.
Philby's friends in the Secret Service believe he has been treated unfairly. They arrange a job for him in Beirut, Lebanon, where Philby works as a freelance journalist. But others in the service are convinced he is a Soviet spy. They decide to force a confrontation. January 23, 1963. Sensing that he is about to be caught, Philby leaves Beirut and escapes to the Soviet Union. In Moscow, Philby is not surprised to learn that his dissolute old friend, Guy Burgess, has been living a miserable life. Burgess has been rejected by the Soviets for his sordid habits, a pathetic figure in his old Eton tie. In August 1963, Burgess dies of liver failure. He was 52 years old. McLean attends the funeral. Philby does not. McLean's life in exile is hardly better. He is never able to shake the curse that linked his name with Burgess. Moscow is dreary to McLean. His wife and children leave him. Again, he plunges deeper into despondency and drink. McLean dies in 1983 at the age of 69. He is given a hero's funeral attended by high-ranking Soviet officials, but not Philby. At McLean's request, his ashes are flown to England. In London, 2 weeks later, Anthony Blunt collapses and dies at his apartment. Blunt had been exposed as the fourth man and stripped of his knighthood. The fifth man is finally identified as John Cairncross, living comfortably in the south of France. In Moscow, Kim Philby is treated like a celebrity. The KGB pays him a salary and gives him a 5-room apartment. In his Moscow apartment, Philby tells the KGB everything he knows about British and American intelligence. He describes every covert operation, names every agent he ever met, writes profiles assessing their strengths and weaknesses. Nothing is considered too trivial. It takes the KGB years to debrief him. I emptied my memory and my emotions onto paper, he said. Philby falls into his old habits of drinking and depression. On May 10th, 1988, Kim Philby dies of heart failure. He also is given a hero's funeral and is buried in a military cemetery reserved for distinguished citizens. The great game is over. The Cambridge Spies. They were the last people to be suspected of disloyalty. Young undergraduates training to take their places in the British establishment. Instead, they tried to destroy it from within.